Hello, everybody. I always have to wait till it says live and then 4 or 5 seconds go by because every time I edit it, it looks horrible. And you'll notice at the end, just a little thing to pick up on when me and my guests say bye today and we say bye and we're frozen like this, just waving blankly at the camera. It's because it takes a little bit to get going. But anyway, I am very pumped to be doing this during the day. This is a very very good time, especially coming after the heels of a busy, hectic weekend, a shit ton of snow. So even though this is a work day, I have been very lucky to work from home, and it enables me to talk to a lot of my favorite authors who are not in the necessarily the same time zone as myself or Australia, because for some reason they're getting up as my day is ending. That makes it a little easy. But I work from home and I've gotten to talk to some really cool people. Today is absolutely no exception. His new book is coming out, I think, February 3rd, if I remember. That's probably something I should have checked before starting, but it popped in my head. I'm pretty sure it's February 3rd. He can correct me. It is Hammerfall, the author, Rob J. Hayes.
Oh,
Ooh.
look at that. I've just realized I'm reversed. My book is backwards.
Oh, yeah. You're full hammer.
I don't know. Maybe that's how you pronounce it in Norse. That's all. Yeah.
Exactly. Look at it that way.
Anyway, yeah. Hammerfall. It's coming out on the 3rd of February. So
I nailed it. I knew it was the 3rd. Like I said, that was probably something I should have checked beforehand, but I remember when I was posting like the review and everything, I was like, February 3rd really sticks out. So we're gonna roll with it. But,
it works.
And you showed the alternate cover, which you just released the other day.
So this is the standard cover of it, which is because it obviously matches the other covers, which I feel is very important when they're sitting on shelves. I'm just gonna throw these all out there.
Yeah, they were pulling out of nowhere.
Whereas the other cover is I created a different cover. Well, I didn't create it. I hired an artist to do a different version of the cover for the ebook, which is the version that you've got there. Look at that!
Popping it right up
because I wanted a slightly different cover for the ebook version to try and pull in a different crowd. Because the entire point of writing this book, apart from there was another story that I wanted to tell in the world, is to try and reach new readers, basically, and hopefully draw them into the larger series.
Which is very.
Sorry,
no, I was going to say that's why you went for the standalone angle with this book.
Exactly. A lot of people, they don't want to start a big series without sort of like, dipping their toes in first. So I figure writing a standalone set in the world is a good way to just sort of pull people and go, look, it's not a big commitment. It's a short book. If you like it, you could move on to the rest. If not, just forget about it.
No harm, no foul.
Exactly. And also it gave me a chance to write a story inspired by things like the God of War games and like Norse mythology, which I absolutely love.
So it also works out. I was going to ask about inspirations because the God of War games especially was what was on my mind when I was reading it. This isn't my first book of yours that I've read, but it's the first book in, the God Eater saga that I've read. I think I have Herald on my Kindle, and I'm always trying. I do not mind big books and massive, series, but I was looking for something as like a palate cleanser once, and I opened it up Herald, and it was like 900 pages Kindle, and I was like, let me just put a pin in this for the moment. And like a day later, I saw the arc for Hammerfall come out, and I was like, yes.
I mean, if you think Herald is long, I mean, it is. It's 235,000 words. The sequel is currently half again as long.
Wow.
It's in editing at the moment, but it's an absolute monster, the sequel. So
one of the craziest things that you do, especially even just hearing the word count for that, I wanted to get a little deeper into just the backstory of God Eater, because I remember when I think ZB Steele was explaining it to me, and it was like, yeah, there are 3 trilogies, all book ones are coming out. Can you go into the backstory of how you do that? Because what the fuck? Like I have trouble writing like a 2-page job aid for work, and you're pumping out 500,000 words of 3 different sequels at the same time.
I mean, I didn't write them over the course of a weekend. So,
I'd hope not.
So yeah, I first wrote Herald back in 2018, I think, and it was quite a bit shorter at that point. I added a lot to it over the years, but I submitted it to an agent who loved it and signed me up, and then tried to pitch it to some publishers. Unfortunately, this was about the same time that most publishing houses was moving away from epic fantasy. They weren't that interested in new epic fantasy authors. And while I wasn't a debut, technically speaking, I wasn't new or anything. Anyway, I was new to them. So I put it on the back burner, but the world was still very much there, and it was very much a case of, if this doesn't sell to a publishing house, I will self-publish it, because I love this world that I'm creating and the story that I'm writing for it. So every now and again, I'd pick it up and I'd re-edit it and add bits and deepen the lore around the world and everything. And then it came to 2023, one of those years, and I decided, okay, there's clearly no interest from a traditional publisher. I'm going to get this ready and publish it myself. But by that point, I had done so much work on the lore and I had no idea how to fit all this extra lore that I'd created into the pages of this book without making it massive and having characters just sit down and go, let me tell you the stories of 1,000 years ago. So I had this sort of these 3 different large stories set within the world. So just to have a bit of a prop, Herald is what I call the present day in the world. This is like the events that are happening in the world now. And then we have Deathless, which is set 1,000 years before Herald, and this tells the story of when humanity rose up, threw off the shackles of faith of believing in God, and killed God. That's not a spoiler. It says it right there in the blurb of Herald. And then we have Demon, which is set 3,000 years before Herald, and tells the story of when Saint Dien basically rose up against the demons and freed humanity from thraldom. Again, not a spoiler. It's right there in the first few pages of Herald that those events are going to happen. But as I was building the lore, I had all these extra things that were happening around those 3 different time periods, or 2 different time periods. So I had this idea of, what if I wrote extra books? Because I was pretty sure I could write 3 books in each of these time zones. And I thought, that's a really terrible idea. Don't do that. So I asked my wife, I laid it all out to my wife and I said, look, please convince me not to do this. And she was like, no, that sounds awesome. Do it.
Oh, praise be to her.
Yeah. So,
well, for us,
that's when
you're probably
for me, I'm just like, oh my God, the amount of work this takes. So I decided, okay, let's do this as a trilogy of trilogies, which it's in some ways it's kind of a gimmick. As far as I'm aware, it's not really been done before, or at least not releasing them concurrently. There may be sort of multiple series set within a world in different time periods, but I don't think anybody's tried to release them as all 3 book 1s, then all 3 book 2s, then all 3 book 3s.
Yeah,
so
I've seen that.
It started off as an insane idea that I wanted to be talked out of, and then turned into a bit of a selling gimmick, and a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. I can only imagine, because even this, which is Hammerfall, which is a standalone in the series, is still a very comfortable sized book. It may not be the massive doorstopper as the other ones, but this is still so fully fleshed out. A lot of times you see people and it's you try to draw people in, or they tell a side story and it's a novella that's 80, 90 pages to really kind of throw the lore out there and, bring someone in. This is a full-on book in its own.
Yeah.
And
It's 92,000 words, which I'm reliably informed is longer than the first Harry Potter book.
Is that the measuring stick that everyone has to go off of at this point?
I don't know. I mean, that's the one that everybody tells me when I tell them how long it is. Whereas I always sit there and go, aha, but Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence was only about 86,000 words.
That's a better measuring stick, I think.
Well, that's what I feel, but people are just like, who's Mark Lawrence? Harry Potter. And I'm like,
all right, fine. It's like, yeah, but without the plot holes, it would have been 50,000. That's always the counter argument you have to go with. Technically, you're killing it. So as far as Hammerfall goes, where is that in the timeline of the saga?
Okay. Hammerfall sits just after the events of Herald, but is a complete standalone. You don't need to have read Herald, and it won't spoil any of the events of Herald.
Which is perfect, because now it works out well to jump into, the next book. And I have another baby coming. Well, technically my wife has the baby coming. I'm just preparing for it.
You just made the damn thing.
I know. Now I have another 3 weeks until my time to shine. But this is going to be a nice, multiple series to jump into on the Kindle, because it makes it very easy when you're holding something at night to have it on low. So I'm looking forward to jumping in to Herald, especially since I already have it. And the Hammerfall tie-in was, I'm sure, so well done. I loved Hammerfall. It was one of the last reads of 2025 for me. I think very close to the end. And it almost got me to completely restructure my favorites of the year because it was that good. So anyone who's really on the fence with it, and I knew it would be good. I've dabbled into Herald. I've read another book of yours, which I'll share in a little bit. But I feel like Hammerfall was such a great character study that it really solidified for me. I feel like as I've read more and more, and maybe just even in the indie scene, I've gotten less away from breakneck, fast paced. This is action sequence. This is action scene. We're going to talk about it at a tavern here, and this is the plot. And I really have started to dive into, the character work of you guys. And I feel like Salitha, especially as a main character, was so multifaceted, and there were so many nuances to her character. So how do you go about creating a character for a standalone book that is as impactful as her, while having all of that lore that you've already laid out in the background, and fine towing it, towing the line for a casual reader like myself to jump into the world and fall in love with these characters and not be completely overwhelmed by things that I haven't read yet?
Well, it's not easy. I mean, for me, I'm very much an exploration writer. I when I go into a book, I go in with the idea of the overarching plot, but I don't know a lot of what's going to happen along the way. Obviously, with writing Hammerfall, I had so much for the world already built that there was a lot of stuff that I could always just, draw from, which made things quite a bit easier. Salitha, while she doesn't fully feature in any of the previous books, she is mentioned a couple of times. So I had an idea of her character as well going in. But what I really wanted was to tell the story of essentially the first fallen angel. She was the first angel to commit the greatest sin, basically, which I won't spoil because that's in the pages of the book. You'll have to read it to find out what. But yeah, so I always knew that I wanted her to be a compassionate character, but also this sort of big badass warrior type character. She was one of the first angels. The first angels are built for war. They were made to slaughter. So it was very much a case of okay, how do I sort of marry those two terms together, along with the approaching the idea of family being so very important to her. So it's a case of building the character around those sorts of things. There's some little things that I like to sort of slip in as subtly as possible. Like she's kind to one of the bad guys of the story, the character that will be known as the Head. despite having no real reason to be kind to him, she is sometimes kind to him, and it's those little things that just give her that extra bit of character work. And I often find that's kind of the way to really deepen a character. It's the little things, it's the subtle things that some people won't even pick up on. That a character just does, often without even drawing attention to it, without even noticing it. Just something that the character does, which just goes, yes, this is what the character is about. This is just baked into their nature, basically. So that's how I sort of like went about building her character. As a sort of like the dropping the hints at the lore without spoiling too much or without overwhelming people. It was very much a case of what can I drip feed to readers, in a way that will entice them, that will make them go, "Ooh, that's excellent! I want to read more." So a lot of it is like hinting at some of the things that are going that have happened, or that do happen in the other books, basically, rather than sort of like going, "Aha, here's a big story about them," talking around these sorts of issues. So Salifa likes to tell stories, the stories of the Glorious Dead, and quite often I use them as a way to sort of like add extra bits of lore into the world that are in the other books. Like, oh yes, here's a story about this character, and I might slip in the fact that angel blood grants immortality and the like. Just those little bits of ways of drip feeding the lore into smaller stories within the world, basically.
Yeah, and it was really well done, especially in the conversations that she has with her daughter along the way. Because again, no spoilers or anything. She has a daughter in this, and she eventually tags along like for the ride of what happens and what's going on. But she's almost like an overzealous reader, because she's just like, tell me more about this, and it's just like, oh, nice. Like, so when she would tell the stories and it was giving the lore of the previous books, it's like, I feel a little bit more familiar having that character, kind of act as, a reader for me. So it made it very easy to identify with it and kind of pick up on a bunch of the themes that I kind of feel like we're underlining her story. Like the big one for her, and you could expand on it if I'm right, it's very heavy into her survivor's guilt, especially at the beginning when she comes into the village and sees what happens. She's like, kind of a not unwanted hero, but what's it called? It's
it's not quite the anti-hero. It's kind of the unexpected. I know what you mean. Now my brain's not working either.
I had it before we started talking too, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a good thing to ask."
It always happens.
Yeah, it's not the anti-hero, but it's the reluctant hero.
That's it. There we go.
The reluctant. Yes. So when she first comes in there, and the real plot of the story gets going, where all the kids are kidnapped, it's just a couple of villagers left over, and they're looking for her because of her legacy and her. She's like an Amazon woman. A creature of death, pretty much from God, that she used to be, and then she's one of the only ones left in her little circle of the world. So I feel like the survivor's guilt that she goes through also really kind of pushes her character forwards throughout this story.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, her being reluctant hero is always the sort of a major, plot point. I was reading things like Legend by David Gemmell, and a few other sorts of books, and I love that idea of like this hero that's brought out of retirement, almost, like this legendary hero that's just sort of like dragged out of retirement for one big final last battle type thing, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I wanted to have her as this sort of like character who's very settled down, just wants to get on with her life, and then is dragged back into this fight, this adventure, basically. So yeah, but the survivor's guilt is, I mean, so at this point in the world, again, not much of a spoiler really, but there aren't many angels left. Most of them have been hunted down for their blood and their flesh, which gives mortals immortality. But God is dead. Again, not a spoiler. So yeah, she has a fair amount of guilt in the way that she has survived where so many of her brethren have died. And there's also the fact that she feels guilty over the slaughter that she has committed in God's name, which is something that for her never really played a part until she started her own family, who are mortal. So she started to get a better idea of what mortality is about, and then started to realize, oh yeah, and also I've killed so many mortals in my lifetime. But again, it's just another sort of like layer to her character that I want to add in there. And I feel that's one of the ways to create a character. You layer things on top of each other, which is just like a person, really. No person is one thing. People are always multiple different things. There's multiple layers to even the most basic of bitches. So I just feel like that's also the way to create a character. Just add extra layers on top over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And it works so well because even I think as more people read it, you're going to start to see more praise for the head, because I mean he's a fucking head, and it's such a great character along the way, and that's really kind of it's so funny that that's like a testament to good writing, where all of a sudden it's like a raider who got killed and was a piece of shit, and halfway through the story you're just like, can I get another head monologue? Like all of his logic and eventually starts to make sense. And it's just like the conversations, like you said, that she's a little nicer to him than some of the other people, which makes sense. She wasn't in the village and didn't have any, kin slaughtered by that company taken. But it goes deeper than that into like almost their relationship, where it's like kind of a mutually respect type thing, which is very funny because he is a heathen. But as far as character goes, how fun was it to write him? Because I could imagine as you're typing that out, it's just like, yes, like
it was great fun. I always love writing acerbic characters. When you get to just be like, yeah, I get to take the humor off the leash and just go wherever I mean, obviously there's no proper swearing in the book. The whole God Eater world, all the swearing is sort of in universe almost. But you still get to sort of like have them be offensive and the like, which was great fun. But then I also got to be like, okay, I'm going to have this incredibly offensive character and also do a bunch of character development with him after he dies.
Yeah.
But no, he was an absolute joy to write. Funnily enough, I loved writing him, and I also just loved writing Salifa and her daughter as well. It was so much fun, like both Salifa and her daughter, and then also Salifa and the head. It was almost like writing two buddy cop movies in one book, side by side. It was great.
It was really funny, and it's very interesting to hear you say that, though, those two relationships, especially because while those two are bickering back and forth, and a lot of the people who you would consider good in the story, like Head would say something and they'd be like, that's despicable, and she's like, oh yeah, all right, like yeah, that kind of made sense, and like it tied it in nicely. And especially that same almost reversal of innocence with her daughter, where she has to like lecture her on how not to steal, and he's like, but she left it on the ground, and like the Head would be like, good job, and it was like, yeah, but she wasn't dead, she just walked away, why is it her? It was a very funny kind of dynamic that those characters had together.
It was great fun. I mean, how do you teach a child not to steal when when you basically you're not entirely sure you believe it yourself, and it's just like when the child's just like, well, I just found this thing. It's like, God.
Like, well, kinda. like, well, so yeah, someone put that down. You didn't find it. That's where they left it. And it's like, yeah, but if they leave it for like 10 minutes, it's mine, right? And she's like, yeah, okay.
But when it's sometimes right and it's sometimes wrong, and you're just like,
I know.
So,
Remind me not to follow those lessons, raising my own kids. I'm gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, I got it from Hammerfall," as my two-year-old is just grabbing things. I'm like, "This is mine now."
I would never ask anyone to use any of my books as life lessons for children.
All right, we'll go on record, but we'll see what happens. Um, so as far as the God Eater saga goes next, I know you said that you have book two in was it in edits or drafts? Did
Yeah.
you say?
Book two of the main series, the sequel to Herald, is currently in edits. It's already gone out to my first readers, my alpha readers, and they all came back with some really good feedback on how to improve it. So it's gone back into edits, and then I still need to write the book twos in the other two series, and then they'll have to go through a similar sort of thing. Luckily, they're a lot shorter, so it won't quite be another mammoth couple of years of just like get this book down. Yeah, so I'm hoping that I'm going to launch the Kickstarter for phase 2 towards the end of this year, basically. Fingers crossed. Because I'm kickstarting. I kickstarted phase 1, and I'll be kickstarting phase 2 as well to do these lovely special editions of the books, basically with lots of interior art and fancy dust covers and not gilded, sprayed edges and stuff. So
It's very cool that all the stuff that goes into the book creation, especially like 2 years ago, I wasn't really a big indie reader. I like had it floated across from me, like what you'd see on like Reddit, and people would be like the best indie books. Those were what I picked up and everything. But like you really don't get a scope of how much work you guys put in behind the scenes to get all of these things done. Whether even like you said, you hired the artist to create the book cover, but you're still putting in the work to find someone who works with your vision. The editing process, you have to have a good relationship with them. And like you said, the alpha readers, the people who like give you that initial feedback on. Was that something that you kind of expected going into the self-published game, or were there any kind of facets of it where it was, man, like this is going to take a little bit to get used to, like kind of doing the grind on your own like that? Because this is all stuff that I never even contemplated.
I had no bloody clue what to expect when I first started self-publishing. I didn't know what to do. So I released my debut trilogy, The Heresy Within. Oh, look, there's it. Oh, God, I can't do it. There we go. God, I'm trying to figure out where we are on camera. Anyway, that's the artwork right there. Anyway, The Heresy Within, The Color of Vengeance, The Price of Faith. I released all 3 books on one day, basically, when I first self-published back in 2013, and I just threw them into the world. Had no idea what to do, so spammed a bunch of social media, going, "The books are here."
Yeah. I know you've all been waiting. Here you go.
And I mean, they did fairly well. Not by any effort on my part, because I didn't know what I was doing. So so I had no idea back then. It was very much I mean, to be fair, I didn't know anyone to ask back then about what to do. It was very much a case of those of us who were self-publishing were kind of an island, just a whole series of islands. Whereas now the writing community is huge and incredibly supportive. You will always find people willing to give you advice and so. Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. It was very much a case of I threw those first 3 books out there, and then since then I've been trying to learn the individual stages of the business as much as possible. And it turns out there's a hell of a lot of them. And being a self-published author, you have to wear all the hats all the time, which is exhausting. But at the same time, it's very rewarding. Partly because you get a larger cut of the royalties, which is lovely, but also because when a book succeeds, you know that I've done that, I've made that happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, between sort of like you write the book, that's the first stage. You do the editing, the first stage of the editing yourself. Then you have to send it to alpha readers and beta readers, and then when you get the feedback from them, one of the biggest problems is how do you take the right feedback and the wrong feedback? Which bits do you take? If they all come back and say the same thing, you can be like, okay, yeah, there's maybe an issue there. But if you've got multiple different people coming back, somebody's like, oh yeah, this bit's really slow paced, and somebody else is like, oh yeah, that same bit's really fast paced, you can like, what?
You guys talk this out. Come to a decision.
It's amazing how many times you get that sort of like contradiction in feedback. So yeah, you need to sort of like pass the separate types of feedback. Then yeah, you got to hire an editor. Then not only do you have to find an artist to do the cover and any artwork, you also have to do the art direction to make sure that what they produce is what's correct to your vision. And that's before we even get to publishing the book. There's so much to do.
It's all of that stuff. And then one of the biggest things that I always see, especially not complained about, but it's like one of those underlying things that you never expected, marketing. And I always talk to like people, and it's just like all of a sudden I have to make amazing TikTok and
sorry, Beagle have to go out.
Priorities. It's the kind of heavy on the marketing, which I don't think a lot of people expected, where it's like now you have to make carousels and reels and this and this. And a lot of the times people are like, I just wanted to write the book and like tell the story. Now you have to go online and do that. Is that something that came easy to you to do, like the visual marketing?
Not at all. Especially by the fact that, I mean, just learning it in the first place was tough. I've had to learn how to create things like ad images, also the ad copy, figure out what works. But then the other problem is the rules change constantly. So yeah, there's been times where it's like, oh yeah, carousels are now the way to make ads work. And then, next month they'll be like, oh, that's changed now. Now it's all about like 10-second videos. And you're like, okay. And the next thing you know, no, now just static images. And it's a constant change of what works, and you having to relearn and adapt basically. So it's not one of those things where you just learn it. It's a case of, okay, I spend probably an hour to an hour and a half every day working on marketing. And some of that is coming up with new ads, and some of it is just trying to figure out what works at the moment, or potentially what might work in the future.
Yeah. It's very interesting to hear like your perspective on that as like an author and what you're doing to get yourself out there more. Because I feel like a lot of the times people can not do, but very easily take the things that are already popular, where it's like you could describe your book and you're like, it's if Lord of the Rings crossed with, and throw out like the buzzwords and get things. But I always feel like it takes a lot of originality to kind of see the trends and pivot with them to still be unique on your own. Like not throwing any shade out there, but I don't know how many times I've seen like the reels and everything on Instagram, especially at this point, where it's just like, did you like Sun Eater? Did you like Red Rising? Did you like this? Try this. It is a cozy fantasy. And you're like, what? Like, and it's like just to get the eyes on it. And it's like, I'm sure what you're advertising is great, but it's like, try to, it's hard. It's things that like, people, especially who go into this is like, I want to write and tell the story. Don't necessarily expect to need a bachelor's of marketing to get their stories out there. It's just another like funny little aspect of things where like, I never even considered it. Like when I make a reel or something and like 7 friends are like, that was funny. And I get like 8 likes on it. I'm like, 7 people thought it was funny. Like, nice. But, like, it takes me 8 seconds to do, and I'm not relying on royalties for it. So, kudos to always having to, try and think ahead the way that things are going to go. It's interesting to hear that aspect of things.
It's it's kind of like one of those Venn diagrams in some way. You've got the 3 circles. You've got to be like, okay, what will people react to? What will advertising platforms, say Facebook, actually send to people? Because here's the other thing: you've got to get the algorithm, Facebook's algorithm in this case, to be like, I'll send that to people, because they won't always. Sometimes it will just look at an image and be like, nah, I'm not sending that to anybody. And then you've got to have the other circle, which is, will this make them buy the book? And you've got to find that nice little sweet spot right in the middle where it's like, yes, people will like this, people will buy the book, Facebook or whatever platform will send it to people. But yeah, so it can be tough. I mean, comparisons are always a good one to use, you know, the whole sort of like, but just saying like, oh, it's like Game of Thrones and Red Rising. The problem is they're really popular and everybody is describing their book in that sort of way. So it doesn't mean anything. But if you can find the right comparison, you'd be amazed how well it can do. I sell a lot of copies of Never Die by saying it's like Seven Samurai meets The Witcher.
See, that's so much more interesting.
It's one of those where it's not like insert these two hugely popular books or whatever, and it's the sort of thing that people go, ooh, ooh, that sounds odd. I might have a look at that.
I totally agree, and it feels like those are not the Nevernight comparison, but like those big books are so frequent that if I see it compared to it at this point, I'm like, I don't want to read Lord of the Rings light. Like, I don't need to waste my time doing that. But if you pick two unique things, like you just said, it's like, oh shit, like this guy actually knows what he's talking about, and those rule. Like that is very much more intriguing than the alternative.
Exactly, but it's finding the correct comparisons that, you know, people will sort of like gel with, that are that sort of like, that's different. Let's try that out. But also they need to be relevant. you know, you can't be like, oh yeah, it's like some Samurai and The Witcher, but then it's actually like neither of them. It's like when you go on Reddit and you see all those recommendation threads where somebody's like, oh yes, I want this romantic cozy fantasy, and somebody's like, Malazan?
Yeah, the worst. It's funny as someone going there viewing it, but it's almost one of those like where you can't even comment on it because it's just like, I'm gonna let this one pass. Like I'm exiting the browser. Like I can't do this right now. Like you're just signing yourself up for just like 9 hours of debating. And it's like I'm just good.
Yeah, it's just not worth getting involved sometimes.
Pass. But it's very funny also to hear the recommendation game in the indie world. And I brought this up to I think my last guest and maybe someone before him because I know that they were also big music guys. And you know, we talked a little before. You're a big metal fan, correct? We were talking about.
Yeah.
So my theory, and I guess it's not even a theory as much as it's an observation because I love metal. I love, you know, jam band music, Grateful, that type of stuff. And a lot of those music scenes are very closely related to the indie scene. And it's very interesting to see the kind of camaraderie that goes into the indie writing community. And, you know, your name especially getting passed around as like top tier self-published stuff. And, you know, the recommendations come out, but it's almost the same thing as in those punk, the metal, the jam band scenes where people would be like, oh, you like this? Check out this cassette, like back in the day. And it was like, here, put this in, or check out this burned mix. That's how I found half of my favorite bands, where it was like, here's a CD. It holds 2 songs, but you'll probably really like it. And that's how it got.
I remember those days.
And like, that's how the things got passed around to me. But do you agree kind of with that sentiment that it's very much like building up people you admire to, you know, get bigger in those surrounding areas? And what do you think kind of corresponds to that level of comparison between like those types of genres, the indie scenes in music and indie scene to writing?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously one of the probably the best way to get any book out there, or well, anything really, any sort of like creative endeavor, is always going to be word of mouth. So having that sort of like, just being able to sort of like essentially get people talking about your book, or you know, your band or whatever, is always you know, going to be incredibly useful. And you know, it's one of those where word of mouth is always so useful because you can see an advert and it will be like, here's a book, and you're like, cool, yeah, that looks like a cool book, that's a cool tagline, whatever. But if your mate comes up and is like, dude, this book, oh my god, this book is so damn good, you know, you're going to be more likely to try it. So I think, you know, a big part of like the indie scene, part, you know, especially in the book community, is because it's so supportive. We're always reading each other's books as well. Which allows us to then also recommend each other's books. You know, I'm constantly recommending people like, you know, Michael R. Fletcher, because, you know, big fan of his books. And especially when people are just like, oh, we like stuff like yours. Well, then you might like Michael R. Fletcher. We both write sort of quite dark fantasy with a lot of humor baked in, basically. So I think those sort of like little comparisons are really helpful there, to know if you like this, you will probably like this. But yeah, what was the second half of the question? Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there.
No, that was a good tangent. That wasn't even a tangent. That was a good answer. And I feel like I don't even know the second part of my question.
I can't remember what the second part of the question was. So.
I don't either. It couldn't have been that important. Probably not the best attribution of my interviewing skills, where I'm like, fuck it. It was just that one question.
I don't know. But talking about music, the interesting thing about this, here's a nice little anecdote, basically. So the entire of the God Eater saga can kind of be attributed to a single line lyric from a band. Basically, I was listening to a band called Rise Against, and their song, To Them These Streets Belong. The line, my hands are soaking in the blood of angels. I was just sort of like, I was having a pace around my house. I had my earphones on. That lyric came on, and for some reason, it just triggered something, this explosion of creativity. And the world of the God Eater was kind of like started expanding from there. I had this idea of like, oh yeah, but the blood of angels, what could happen with the blood of angels? People could soak their hands in the blood of angels and they could get powers. People could drink the blood of angels and get immortality. And so like the magic system just went, and then the world just started building from there. So I just sort of like, I got this notepad out and I just started writing like the first bare bones of the story, the first sort of like chapter. It turned into the actual prologue, for Herald. It took me hours to write. My wife came home at one point and she was just like, how are you doing? I was like,
okay.
Just like paying no attention. I'm just writing. And then hours later, I was just like, got this notepad. I was like, bang, first chapter of a new story. Yeah.
That is awesome. It's very cool. Especially, I'm a big music guy, obviously. So it's very cool. I love asking people whether, obviously, like that type of medium plays a role in like the creative process and everything, but are you listening to Rise Against while you write or anything, or are you like a silence guy? I need like ambient, lo-fi, just droning.
I want as close to silence as possible when I'm writing and also when I'm reading, to be honest. It's one of those where I don't want the external input. I use music when writing, well, not when writing. I use music as a dreaming sort of aid. So, you know, if I'm going for, I've got an action scene to write, I might listen to some, you know, like frenetic music to get me in the mindset for it. And if quite often there's a song, I'll hear a song and I'll be like, that's just working for me for a scene or sometimes even a book. And, you know, I'll usually then put it on repeat to death. But no, so it's just one of those where I'll be like, I'll go walk the dog and I'll have like music on and it'll help me get into the mindset and I'll be working through scenes and dialogue. But when I actually sit down to write, music off, it's just tap, tap, tap.
Oh, interesting. It's always funny to hear that. Some people are like, yeah, I remember reading On Writing, like Stephen King's book, and he's like, I listen to Anthrax and the Ramones and all this. And it's like, just say you don't like your wife. Like, he's like, everyone will leave me alone. Is like what his good thing was. He was like, I put on like all this, that heavy metal just to be like, I'm writing. But then, you know, it's funny to hear other people who are just like, yeah, I love that music. Silence when writing. And it's like, it's
different people use different sort of aids, basically. It's one of the joys of it. Everybody, you know, likes different things. Everybody has different methods to get it all working and everything. Luckily, no two people are exactly the same.
Yes, definitely. And it's Very funny. You brought up two things, which I'm going to lead into my next book. One, word of mouth. Two, fantastic action scenes. Because this is going to very quickly be off my shelf because the other Sunday, I see my family a lot. My dad and both brothers, big readers as well. So I was talking with them about it. And I mentioned that one of your books has the best prologue of all time. And I ran downstairs and I got it and read it to them, and two of them were instantly going shotgun. And then I switched and was like, okay, when you're done. And like, so I explained, the background of the story to him. The book, of course, for people who couldn't read it, Never Die, which I had ready to go here. So it's just, one of those funny testaments where word of mouth and things get around. This obviously completely different than the God Eater saga. This is Mortal Techniques. And this is a standalone book in that universe. Can you give us into some inspiration onto what made you want to dive into this type of setting?
Yeah. Just to read it out loud. The prologue is Atami Cho woke to the screams of her own death. She remembered it all. That's it. That's the entire prologue.
That's it. Yeah.
That
got sent to me, and I was like, "Where's the fucking Amazon link?" Like, I think I saw it in one of those Reddit threads, like best prologue or first lines, and that was there. A couple other ones, and I was like, it was at the house 2 days later.
It's wonderful. Like first lines. A lot of people. I've read so many books where the first line's just like, oh yeah, that's fine. It's very sort of like, oh yes, the sky was grey. But like sometimes you have like an absolutely badass first line, and it can sell a book. I have sold so many copies of Mark Lawrence's Red Sister by that prologue, which is just like it's important when killing a nun to bring an army of sufficient size.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
So good. But yeah, no. When I was writing Never Die, it was a weird time for me. Basically, it was I just split from a indie publisher that I had been published by with some of my books for a while, and at the time I had no books fit on sale, so my career felt like it was just like in the toilet, nothing going on. I was trying to write the War Eternal series, and I'd written the first book, which I absolutely loved, Along the Razor's Edge. And my first attempt at writing The Lessons Never Learned, the second book, was so dire that all of my alpha readers came back and went, this is shit. And I agreed. I went, I know it's shit. So I had no idea what I was doing. I was in a really bad sort of like space. And then one of the things I've always loved like martial art films. I back in the day I used to sneak downstairs and like past midnight when everybody else had gone to bed, because we had like 4 TV channels back in the day, and the only time any of them put martial art films on, there was like one channel, and they were like, had to be 12 o'clock or midnight or whatever. So I used to sneak down and sort of like put the TV on really low and just like sit really close to it. But I've always loved these sort of like martial art films. I used to watch like all the Jackie Chan films back in the day, like Project A. And then I used to love like the wire fu type ones, like A Man Called Hero. And later we obviously had Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hero, brilliant film. So yeah, I was sort of like, I was in a really bad place. So I was sort of like, I'm going to watch a bunch of martial art films. They always make me happy. So I was watching some of these films, and just the idea of it just started popping into my head of just like, oh, I could write a book like this. I can't even remember the specific film. I was watching one film, and all of the characters had these insane names, like, the 13th Master of Sinwu. And I was just like, that's such a stupid name. I fucking love it. And like, watching Hero, where you have all the characters, like, there's a character whose name is just Broken Sword, and I'm like, that's so cool.
Genius.
Yeah. And you've got that first fight scene with Donnie Yen and Jet Li, and it's just like, and it's all like done in their mind, when it's like, this stylistic time, like brilliant. So yeah, I just went, I'm just going to write this story. It started popping into my head again, and I was started telling my wife about it. She'd just come home from yoga at the time, and I was just like, "Here's this story idea," and she was like, "Ah!" So I just decided, you know what? This book that I'm trying to write, The Lessons Never Learned, it's not working. I'm in a really bad place. I feel depressed. This idea is just jumping out at me, speaking to me. I'm just going to go at it. So I just dropped everything and wrote Never Die. And it turned out it was quite a good idea because people seem to love it.
It's fucking awesome. That's why.
How about I write a martial art film?
Yeah,
Put a book.
honestly, the way things are going, I would much rather see that than what's out there. So I would endorse that. But I feel like one of the big reasons that people really love Never Die is the action scene, especially the last 20 minutes is not minutes. Jesus, we're talking movies. 20% of it took me 20 minutes. Was insane. How hard is it to write those action sequences where, you know, it's such close quarters and there's so much going on, and trying to get everything across and making it as amazing as it is without leaving us, because, you know, all this is, you know, imaginary, like where I'm picturing it, and not being like, who's hitting what? Like, who just died? Who got disemboweled and then thrown off a cliff? What happened?
Weirdly, I know. See, people find different authors find different things like difficult. I know a lot of authors who are just like, I find action scenes so hard to write. How to make them interesting for me? Again, this may come from the fact that I, you know, have been watching martial art films and like my entire life. I find action scenes so incredibly easy to write. That sort of like level of close choreography, and then like where you're trying to explain what's happening, but you don't want to over explain it. You don't want to be like every single move. So it's when to sort of like explain the little moves and when to pull it back and just let them, you know, slap at each other. It's just something that comes very natural to me. It's something that I find incredibly easy to do. Whereas, you know, sort of like big emotional scenes, those ones I have to work really hard at. Pulling out the more descriptive passages as well. So yeah, for me, that's just something that's very easy, and I love doing as well. I love a good action scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's very cool to hear, because there's a very fine line between making an amazing action scene and a really cool one. And really cool is like, this is really cool to read, but I have to, you know, go back a page and be like, who was fighting who, and, you know, it kind of loses the immersion a little bit. And I feel like the way that it was done in Never Die, it flowed so well that it felt like I was watching it as it was happening. And like by the time the book was done, it was just like one of those put downs, and you're just like, like shit, like now what? So
to be fair, I cheated a little bit with Never Die in that you know who's fighting who, because when the chapters that they're fighting start, it says at the top of the chapter. It's like Whispering Blade versus Flaming Fist. Okay, well, guess who's fighting?
That is fair. It is almost like a title card.
But like they're just like, there's some like nice little nods there, because I was like, oh, what if I did it like, yeah, a bit of like a computer game, you know, like a versus, like Street Fighter. Fight scene starts and it's just like Whispering Blade versus Flaming Fist, fight. Yeah. I just had so much fun with that book, to be honest.
Are there any more coming down the pike with the Mortal Technique stories, or are you kind of fully engulfed in, you know, God?
I want to write more. Funnily enough, I've written the first 10,000 words of another one called Seven Swords, but I have too many other things on the go right now, between the God Eater saga and my Titan Hoppers books. Basically, I'm writing two long ongoing series at the same time. So unfortunately, I've had to put the rest of my ideas for Mortal Techniques books on the back burner for now. But eventually there will be more, because I love writing in that world. I love writing these sort of standalone sword and sorcery type adventures. So yeah, it's something that I'd love to get back to. But at the moment, with having two separate series on the go, I just can't find the time.
Mm-hmm. which makes sense. And it's also very reassuring to hear that even though it's like, well, yeah, it's on the back burner, other things that are awesome are coming out in the meantime. It's not just like, yeah, it's on the back burner. I just have to like think of what to do next. Like that type of thing. It's like other things are happening, which is oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense, you know?
Luckily, I have never had the problem of not having ideas. I just don't have the time. I've got so many stories that I want to write. I've got some stories which are sort of like partly written and need time to go back to. I've got one series which the first book is written, and I need to write the second two books. And I'm just like, I could technically just release book one now, but I don't know when I'll have time to write the other two books. So it's just going to have to just sit there for the moment.
Yeah, and look at that. It's like, yeah, I'm 1/3 of the way there. So, you know, look at it positively, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, no, ideas, not a problem. Time, that's the problem.
One of the other big questions I have, especially the way that we were talking about the prologue for Never Die, and the way that the prose is written, especially in, you know, I'm only referencing Hammerfall and Never Die since those are the two I have so far. But I feel like it is very cool to see in ebook form, because one of the cool features they have on the Kindle is, you know, you could see who highlights what. And it's, you know, whether it's an awesome one line sentence like that, or it's one of Salitha's kind of identifying, not speeches, but like internal thoughts about, you know, family and that type of stuff. When you're writing, whether it's, you know, action, introspective, whatever, wherever it's going to be placed, do you know right away when you wrote something, whether it's like, you know, that sentence or a paragraph, fuck yeah, like just crush that? Or is it something you notice on like your second draft, or does an alpha reader have to be like, this is really dope, and send it to you before you recognize? I'm always curious about that, because I'm such an you know, I haven't written anything. I fuck up drawing stick figures. I am not of the creative variety. I make fun of things meanly. So I'm always interested to hear from you guys about that.
I mean, it can work in many different ways. Sometimes, yeah, you write something, you're like, "Ooh, that was a bit deep. That worked." And yeah, you absolutely know that that's a banger line. That's yeah. And sometimes you can write a line that you think, yeah, that's fine, and then you'll send it to readers, and they will all highlight it and go, "That's brilliant," and you're like, "Really? Okay, yeah, fair enough." And yeah, it's very much a case of like different lines, yeah, speak to different people. But yeah, it's when you do write that line and you're just like, ooh, that's a good one. Like, I mean, to be honest, one of my favorite lines from Hammerfall is the "How long can a cause remain just when painted in the blood of innocence?" It was I just, when I wrote that, I was like, oh yeah, I like that one. I like that one so much I'm making it the tagline for the book. But yeah, so it's just a case of line by line, which ones speak to different people. You know when you've written one that speaks to you, but sometimes other people will be like, no, this one speaks to me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've read a few books on Kindle where, yeah, you'll see like 300 people have highlighted this, and it all, whenever you see that, you're like, okay, I'll pay a bit more attention to this line.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you like cool.
Write that to the side and just look up a synonym for each word. Let's pivot.
But I do wonder if there's a sort of like critical mass thing where it's like if enough people highlight that line, that other people, you know, it starts showing up, more people will take notice of it, more people will also highlight it. It's the same way. It's like when a book gets popular, more people talk about it, which means that it's going to get more popular. So yeah, it's kind of if you can hit that critical mass, it will always snowball.
Yeah, it's very funny to see. Every once in a while, I'll read something on Kindle, and it's like, especially this, for instance, where it's like, you know, I'm ARC reading it, so I had it a little early, and there was like one or two things, and then I jumped into one of the only trad books I read last year. I was the Raven Scholar, and on like the third page, it was like 43,000 highlights, and I was like, we are in a different spectrum right here. I almost did not want to highlight it because I was just like, okay, like, you know.
I mean, was it a good line?
I honestly don't remember. Probably it was really good, but yeah, it was just very funny to like see that, and it was one of those like I guess it just blew up where
Yeah.
every review was coming in at the same time, every highlight. So I was like reading it, and I saw that, and it was like the way I use it is they made it very convenient, especially for the fantasy type of books because little things that you guys put in your world, I'll highlight as a reminder when I go to like review it or talk to someone. Like I remember like Andrew Watson, I was talking with him and his one of his cool things right off the bat was the less number of letters you have in your name, the more important you are in stature in the society. And I was like, I am never going to remember that, but it is a sick idea. So, like, that highlighted, but I'm sure someone looking at my highlight is like, the fuck did this guy get out of that line? Like, it's
I
just
mean,
so,
is that just like single letters? Like, does that mean George R. R. Martin would be, kind of like, nobody cares because he's got too many single letters in his name?
way too many. They're all unimportant. I think Arya would be like the, or yeah, Arya or Hot Pie would be the two most important people in that world.
It's
One
a
of the
cool
other,
idea.
it was very unique. So I was like, oh, cool. One of the other things I wanted to ask before signing off, when we were talking Never Die and you were mentioning, the martial arts inspired movies. Have you ever seen The Raid Redemption and The Raid 2?
Is the Raid Redemption the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen them both, yeah.
Okay, because that's like my low key go to movies for people who like that stuff because it is brutal and real close quarters action.
Oh yeah. It's very well choreographed. It's like I can't remember which one it is where they have the fight scene in the bathroom stall.
Yeah.
And it's just like bloody hell. All that in like a cubicle.
Yeah, it's nuts. They had like that hallway fight where the girl has like the two hammers and is going back and forth. And yeah, it's in like a 5x5 hallway, and you're just like, what is happening? But as soon as you said you were interested in that, I was like, mental note, I have to bring that up.
I love those ones with like this like really cool choreographing. Like I mean, like there's the hallway scene in Old Boy. I don't know if you've seen Old Boy. It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way it's shot, the way it's choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
One of my last questions here is going to be, because I know we've talked about other types of mediums, whether it's music, movies, shows, anything. Is there any plan to bring any of your work to even like kind of like a web animated type thing? Because I feel like it would lend itself very well. And I've heard that get brought up about, things you've written a couple of times before, where it would be, a very good visual on the spectrum. Do you have any interest in doing anything like that or anything coming up?
I would love to bring some or any of my books to more mediums, such as any like webtoons, animation. But it's not something that I can really fund myself because they tend to be quite expensive. Because obviously there's a lot of artwork involved. So unfortunately, unless a company that produces that sort of thing approaches me, it's unlikely to happen. But I honestly think that Never Die would make a great animated series on Netflix in the style of Arcane or possibly Blue-Eyed Samurai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the first thing that I thought of when I was reading it. I was like, this needs to be like on TV screens because it has the story to go along with it. Like it's not just that type of style of entertainment where it's just like vapid and nothing. Like it is sick. So I didn't know if that was, sometimes you guys like to keep things very close to the vest, and if asked, maybe something sneaks out. So that was me. That was my light prodding because I hate being like, when's book 2? When's book 2? So now I'm just like, what about your show?
The problem with that is when people read book 1 because you've literally just put book 1 out and they read it. They're like, so when's book 2? And you're like, come on, man.
I hate that. Yeah, it's very hard not to want to ask that, but also just like, chill. It's like when you see a band come by and it's just like, we played New York in December, and like the first comment on a post is like, when are you coming back? And it's like, Australia, what's happening? Like, why weren't you there last time? Like,
oh man, it's like, don't rush me. We've got other things going on.
I know. It's like I have to write the album first.
Yeah, but no, unfortunately, there are no current plans for any of my books to be in any other medium other than print, ebook, and audiobook.
Is there an audiobook coming for Hammerfall?
There is indeed, narrated by Nina Yindis. I believe I am pronouncing her name horribly incorrectly.
That's why I let you do the characters and Never Die. I was like, I could do Salitha.
um, it's fine. Just Iron Gut Chen. That's an easy name for a character. Yes, no. I try to bring all of my books to audiobooks these days. All of my new books will certainly be coming to audiobooks. I'm trying to bring my back catalogue all to audiobooks as well, although it's slow going for some of them. But yeah, the audiobook for Hammerfall should be out on the 3rd of February as well, hopefully, as long as the insane way that Audible works and everything allows it.
Well, fingers crossed it will be. I'm sure everything will be fine. And yeah, like you just mentioned, February 3rd, the Audible audiobook will be out. The ebook and physical will be out. I'm sharing the cover again because this was the cover aside, which drew me in. I've read your stuff before, like I said, which was the biggest factor of wanting this arc. But wow, this fucking ruled. I put my review on the Willow Wraith Press site, and it was an absolute pleasure and honor to have read it early, and even more to get a physical copy. I appreciate that very much as well. This was one that an interview that talk where I was very excited and pumped that you said yes, because everything I've read so far is next level, and I'm very much looking forward to diving into the rest of the catalog. I'll be doing like that little hiatus for the next couple months, so I have some back reading to do, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But I am very glad that before that happened, you wanted to join me on here, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me on. I love doing these sorts of things. It's great to chat to people, to readers, to other authors. It's fun. Again, like the writing community that's built up around sort of like indie publishing, especially is amazing. So yeah, I'm always happy to talk to folk.
Yeah, so we appreciate it. Another comment coming in: Never Died looks awesome. It definitely is. I urge you, as soon as this stream ends in 20 seconds, to go and purchase it.
Definitely, you should definitely purchase it. You should read Never Die, and then when you've read Never Die, you should also go check out Sister Samurai by Tatiana Obey.
Another amazing cover. I love that too. Yeah, that was you guys crush fucking covers so hard. But yeah.
Well, she did hire Felix to do the cover for it. So Felix Ortiz, who did the cover for Never Die. So turns out he likes doing samurai.
Yeah, who would have thought a really, really good author loves doing things that he's good at and come out sick? Like Felix is a beast. Every time I see something, I'm like, that is really good. And then someone's like, yeah, Felix Ortiz. I'm like, that kind of makes sense. That would be sick then.
Yeah, he's just way too busy these days. You have to book him like 2 years in advance.
I'm sure that's nice. But yeah, very more well-deserved work there. So I like getting him a shout out as well. Not that he needs it. You owe me 20 cents, Felix. But yeah, thank you for joining me. I am going to go back to work. I hope you have a good rest of your evening over there. Have a good rest of your night, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And thanks for everyone in the chat. We will be talking to you next time. See everyone later.